G'day everyone, Prep Aussie here. I hope you're all well in whatever part of the world you're watching this video. Today is Saturday the 22nd of September and the time here is 09:10 Australian Eastern Standard Time. Well folks, didn't do a video yesterday because I wanted to do this as a weekly news wrap up number 2 and go through some stuff with you that is relevant. Not so much that I try not to do anything irrelevant, but yeah, relevant. Couple of things first, let's go. Okay, first off, sponsor, totally awesome. Golden activated turmeric. Is that the way you say it? Turmeric, sorry. Dopey old Queenslander. Look, folks, this stuff is awesome. Look, seriously. If you've got inflammation in your joints, etc., in yourself, and I've even started giving this to my dog who's got a hip problem, and he has improved out of sight. And I'm not joking. I'm not saying that just because I have to. I'm saying it because it's the truth. I was asked the other day if they deliver. Yes, they do. They'll send this stuff to you. And as I said, the difference between theirs and everyone else's is this golden activated stuff. They mix it with black pepper and coconut oil, I believe it is. And it does work, folks. It's great. Try some. Get some. Mad if you don't. Okay. Second thing. There's a real push for Melbourne to be the first city to host a, I don't know, for want of a better term, Prep Aussie event. I've had an email from a lady in Melbourne. She's already got 15 people. So we're looking like this may happen in Melbourne first. They're going to try and do flights and find me some accommodation, etc. And as I said, you get it organised, I'll go. Simple as that. You know, I'm not the star of the event, by the way. Remember this. It's everybody else is the star of the event because the idea of this is to get people together. Now, if you're in any other state, try and organise something. This woman's done it. Like I said, she's already got 15 people. Now, if you want to get hold of this woman, send me an email and I will forward it on to her at her discretion. She either contacts you or she doesn't. That's up to her, really. But I'm hoping that we get this going in the next couple of weeks. And, you know, what are we looking at now? Probably after the grand final, I'd say. Which is in a couple of weeks' time, because you don't want to be flying before the grand final. It'll just be a joke. So there you go. We're getting there. Now, I have something very, very interesting as regards to Alexander Downer that I'm going to show you, if you haven't already seen it. This one here, and it's in the ABC, and the interesting thing here is that, how am I going to say this? It's very obvious that Alexander Downer is in a lot of shit here. And the Australian government is in a lot of shit here. Because it's becoming apparent that MI5, MI6, the Australian government, were working together to try and get Trump out of office. So, look, and as you all know, Trump and all the Americans would already know all this. And this George Papadopoulos fella has now started saying stuff that this Alexander Downer has to refute. And Alexander Downer is not saying anything. Hoping that, it'll just, we'll be able to put it in a washing machine somewhere along the line and it'll all wash out and, the dirt will go out in the water and, we'll pull the clothes out and they'll be sparkling clean. That ain't happening. This George Papadopoulos is now actually zeroing in on Alexander Downer, saying very, very specific things that only Alexander Downer would know. Or that he told Alexander Downer told him, if you read this article, and it's a bloody good article actually, I'll give the ABC credit. They actually started off trying to say that this George Papadopoulos was lying. But in the end, they couldn't say that because it's clearly obvious that what he's saying is true. And let's be honest, he's already been to jail and he's got nothing to lose anymore. Or he's going to jail for 10 days or something like that because of something irrelevant in his interviews. Now, Alexander Downer is not actually fronting up to these allegations and he's not being questioned by anyone as yet. But, and just 1 second here, he's actually living in London. He's not here in Australia. And he's being massively protected by the MI5, MI6 in London. So, what happens, because this is going to happen, and you need to open your eyes to this, what happens when the US Senate files a subpoena against Alexander Downer? And the reason I'm saying that is because Alexander Downer is the first person in this whole big wheel of things. He was the one that initiated speaking to this George Papadopoulos and then going to MI5 and giving him the information. Now, you might think, well, that's irrelevant. Well, the problem is that it's highly illegal because of the whole Five Eyes thing. So Alexander Downer, at the first point, has absolutely screwed this up because I guess they all said, oh, no one will ever find out. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And now they're in the real big problems. Now, when this comes out, and Devin Nunes has already said that Alexander Downer lied. Straight out. He wasn't even in the Senate. He was on Fox News and he said Alexander Downer lied. There was no investigation. There was nothing. Alexander Downer just gave the information straight to the British. Which is odd. Why would you give it to the British? As an Australian, he should have been given it straight to the Americans. And then MI5 or MI6 did a, expose or whatever they do, report or whatever. And then, guess who popped up? Christopher Steele. So, Alexander Downer, although he's trying to go like that, just push it off, it'll be right. Like I said, throw it in the washing machine, let the muck come out, and I'll pull out the white clothes. That ain't happening here. And like I said, if you read this report, by the end of it, you're under no illusion about just where this is going. Now, here's another point. See this fella here on the left? His name's Eric Cantor, or Christian Cantor. And he's engaged to this bird down here. This woman here. Now, they organised the meeting. But the problem is, they're both spies. He works for Israel. She works for the Israel Secret Service as well, apparently. Now, the only reason we know about these two people, we didn't hear about them before, did we? The only reason we know about these two people is that George Papadopoulos has actually said that they were actually at the meeting. So Downer's sphinxter just went. When he was thinking, oh, no one will ever know, this will be okay. These two Israeli operatives set up the meeting. So there's a very good chance that Alexander Downer is actually either A, going to get a lawsuit, or B, get thrown in jail. Now, where does the Australian government stand in this? And if you remember, I did a report on this, a video on this about a month ago, so 2 months ago, telling you that this guy lied. This Alexander Downer lied. He flat out lied. And now this George Papadopoulos has dropped him in the shit by saying, well, there was 2 other people there. These 2 people, both who turn out to be Israeli Secret Service agents. Alexander, if you're looking at this video, hire a good lawyer. A very good lawyer. And you might be buying points soon to fly to America. Ooh. Don't use your flybys, let the Americans buy it for you. But like I said, where does this leave the Australian government? Because at that time, that was it Julia Gillard? Kevin Rudd? And then, it was Kevin Rudd. Julia Gillard, Kevin Rudd. Ooh, the plot thickens, folks. I might be wrong. It might just be inside the realm of Tony Abbott, but I believe this was way before Tony Abbott. So Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd are also soon going to have a shit fight. Now, do you remember, if you cast your mind back, do you remember that James Clapper, just before the election in America, flew to Australia and had a big sit-down meeting with the Australian government? Wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall to know what was said at that meeting? James Clapper has now turned state's evidence, apparently, and is going singing up to the birds. Very soon, you're going to go to bed one night and you're going to wake up in the morning here in Australia and the shit is going to hit the fan in America. And people are going to start getting arrested and everything else. And like I said, I wouldn't mind betting it's before the 8th, or it's on the 8th and the 9th of October. 9th and the 10th, sorry, whatever that Shabazz day was. Interesting times, folks, interesting times. Okay. I don't know whether you guys are paying attention to what's going on in the UK with Brexit. But if you're not, then you really need to start listening to what's being said and what's going on as regards to Brexit. Why do I say that? Well, the reason is because Theresa May, if I'm correct, I think she has 1, maybe 2 seats majority, if she's lucky. You've already had Boris Yeltsin and, is that his name? Boris? Boris. He's shot through, and a couple of other people have said, this Brexit thing's a joke. You're not actually doing it, to please yourself, please the country. So they took off. So she's already a dead man walking, so to speak. Now, the interesting thing about the Brexit thing is the EU came out yesterday and said, it ain't going to work. Not England, because don't forget, she's backed herself because she's gotten rid of all these Boris, and the whole lot of them. And she said, we're doing it on our own. We're going to do the Chequers draft of the Brexit. And everyone said to her, it's not going to work. So now she's gone into the meeting with this Chequers plan, and the EU has turned around and said, it's not going to work. We're not accepting it. And she's now turning around going, well, there is no other option. You either take that option or there is no easy exit, it's a hard exit. When the EU's gone, well, we don't care. Now, the reason you got to think to yourself, okay, well, why is the EU doing this? Because they know that they can trigger an election in the UK and that Labor is going to win, and Labor's going to rescind the referendum, and they're going to go back into the European Union. They've already openly said that. So, if you're wondering why they're all dilly-dallying around this Brexit, now before that happened, Theresa May is going to get a kick up the arse and she's going to get thrown out of Parliament. The new PM I don't know if it'll be Boris. It'll be a heavyweight hitter from the exit people. I don't know if it'll be Boris. I don't think he's Prime Minister's material. Maybe he is. He's a bit like Trump, old Boris. So he might. But within the next week, I'm guessing, she's going to be gone. Because this has been an absolute disaster for the UK. But, by the way, the only other option is they just leave. There is no other option. The other guys have already said that to her. We should just leave. Just say, piss off. You keep your 9 billion and we'll go and do our own thing. I read something yesterday where the European Union, now get this. This is how sick these people are. The European Union has said Northern Ireland voted against leaving the EU. So we want Northern Ireland to remain in the EU. And that, you know, people in England have gone, or you know, the UK have gone, well, that's not going to happen because they're part of the UK. And the European Union has gone, well, no, they're part of Ireland. This is straight up true. This is what they said yesterday. So the British have gone, well, don't be stupid. That's not going to happen. And the EU has made that part of their bargaining negotiations that Northern Ireland has to stay in the EU. You can't make this shit up, folks. So what happens if England turns around and goes, okay, well, if Northern Ireland wants to stay in the EU, they can go back to Ireland. Imagine that. For peace and prosperity, it has to be handed back to Ireland. This all came out yesterday. So while you and I are sitting here, there's people sitting around desks, you know, plotting real evil-doer shit. And the same can be said about Scotland, because Scotland said a couple of weeks ago that the majority of Scotland voted yes to stay in the EU. The massive majority actually, 64% I think it was. But the EU knows that they can't turn around to England or the British Parliament and say, well, we want Scotland to stay. They know that's not going to rub with the UK. But they know that people in the UK don't really necessarily like Northern Ireland and don't really generally think about it as being part of the UK. You know, you can debate that for whatever you want, but I live there and I know exactly how the people in England feel about Northern Ireland. There's no love affair there, let me tell you. It's not like their destination of choice to go and soak up some Irish culture. And they're kind of a little bit on the old weirdo side, the old Northern Irish. Maybe because of all the conflict, I don't know. But this is actually going to blow up this week. And the lead person for that is going to be Nigel Farage. Because he's going to come out this week and he's going to say, she's got to go. And then there's going to be a big hullabaloo and she is going to get thrown out of the parliament. And then you're going to see a massive, majority of support for the government to leave the EU and get back their constitution. If you think that the Brexit was just about Brexit, it's not. What they want to do is leave the UK, leave the euro. Because it gives them nothing anyway. Just all they get is a bunch of bloody refugees and that's about it. And I can tell you that from living there. There's no real financial benefit of them being in the EU. London Wall stands on its own. That's a financial district. It stands on its own anyway. It doesn't need the euro. In actual fact, the euro needs the London financial zone. So there's no real emphasis for England to stay in the euro except for a big big chunk of money, like about 9 billion, 10 billion, something like that, that they're waiting to get back. But a lot of people are now saying, well, you know what? Just give it to them. Let's piss off and they can keep it. So you need to be aware of what's coming this week with that. Okay. Now this is extremely interesting, and I mean extremely interesting. Malcolm Turnbull has come out during the week, I'll put the link in there for you, and described Tony Abbott as an extreme right-wing person, to say the least. That's his words. Why? There's not even any need for him to actually say any of that, because he's not a Prime Minister anymore. He's not in government anymore. And he's not even in frigging Australia anymore. He's in America. Now, this one statement should clarify in every single person's mind what a nefarious shitbag this guy is. And I'm sorry to say this, but for someone who's supposed to be a multi-millionaire, has run businesses and everything else, his ethics and morals that are just poor. He has, from day one of trying to get into politics, knifed, stabbed, run over, dragged, you name it. He's a real Pontius Pilate. Is that the word? What's it? Brutus. Sorry, Brutus. He's a real Brutus. He's absolutely lethal. And the sooner we get rid of shitheads like that, the better. Now, I just want to look, I'm not a poly person by any means, but I want to say something about Tony Abbott. Go back and look at Tony Abbott and Joe Hockey's budget, the first budget that they tried to bring through. And then correspond that to what Trump's doing in America. And they are just about exactly the same. Cutting benefits, getting people back to work, no one sponging off the system, all this sort of stuff. And the one thing that they did wrong was the Medicare thing. Prevention is a lot better than cure, in my mind. So everyone in Australia should have access to free medical, because it's been proven. You go for a blood test 2 or 3 times a year, then you've got a track record of not dying from some shit whole experience of cancer or, whatever. And, that's been proven. So I think that was their one big stuff up in that whole thing. They should never have started going for Medicare. But everything else I'd agree with. Now, I just want to do a bit of a segue here. Now, there's a guy called Katter, and we all know who Bob Katter is. If you don't, from America, he's like a real cowboy politician. He'd be like from your Texas, I guess. Now, and this is interesting. If you can find it, type in Bob Katter's 21 points to better Australia. And he actually read this out in Parliament. A few of them are out there, but the majority of his points were actually 100% bang on. And 100% of Australians would be behind. Okay. 95%, remember them 5% lefties, would be behind what Bob Katter said. If you get 5 minutes, read it. It's an amazing article. And in the future, and I said this at the time to Stroppy me actually, in the future people will actually talk about those 21 points and say this was the, be like the American Constitution, if you like. That's what Australia will be run on in the future. It will be taken up and it'll be running with the Australian government in the future. But as regards to Tony Abbott, look, we all know that this left-wing, middle-left stuff isn't working. It's not working at all. So there is only one other way for the country to go. And that's back to its conservative roots here in Australia, back to hardworking men and women, hard-won jobs, all that goes with it. The snowflakes literally need to get on a plane and piss off, really. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but we're not here to give you guys every single thing you want. We have to have a bit of mongrel back in the country, I reckon, to actually make the country a bit more sensible than what it is. And what I mean by a little bit more mongrel is that we actually have to start being a bit more severe. And that may sound horrible, but it's the truth. And what I mean by that is, you see people walking down, Melbourne Mall with bloody PLO flags and everything else. Well, personally, they need a good kick up the arse, and they need to be given a choice. Well, you either want to be in Australia or you don't. If you don't, good. Take your PLO flag and all the paraphernalia and shit that goes with it, drive down to Turmeric and get on a plane and fire truck off, because we don't want you here. The Africans that are... this pisses me off as well. African Australians, Australian Africans or whatever they are. No, you're not. You're either fucking Australian or you're not. I don't care if you're black, yellow, green, blue, got polka dots or whatever. Are you an Australian? Yes or no? If you're an Australian, good. Put your hand up, stand over in that corner. If you want to be African Australian, put your hand up, go to the other side, go to Turmeric and piss off. It's that simple. I'm not interested in your colour of your skin. What I want from you is patriotism to where you were born. And you can see that this is going to escalate to the point where there's going to be rallies in Melbourne soon from people like me saying, you guys either become Australians or get on a plane and piss off. It's as simple as that. We gave you everything to get here. We gave you everything since you've been here, and you're now treating us like shit. And that goes with all of you people out there that are like that. Start becoming Australian. Start looking after each other. Start looking after your country. I'm not interested in your personal, what you want from me anymore. I'm sick of it. So is everyone else. Right. One other thing I want you to read, if you can, is over here on the right-hand side by Peter Dutton. I was a better person to lead than Malcolm Turnbull, says Dutton. Now, you have to try and figure out just where it went wrong for Malcolm Turnbull. And look, you don't have to be Einstein to work it out. The man was a full-on lefty in a right-wing government. And like I said, there's no other way for all this to go now except for right-wing. So all the right-wings went, mate, we can't do this anymore. You're a clown. See ya. Interesting article, you should read it. Right, folks, let's do the prayers. Okay, verse of the day. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. That sounds like a churchy one to me. Okay, and as always, we'll finish with the Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Okay, folks, going to leave it there. Hope you have a good weekend. Might see you on Monday. We'll see how we go. But if anybody knows anyone near Alexander Downey, I'd be sending him some flowers. Because that man's in the shit. As they say, folks, like, share, and subscribe. God bless all. Prep out.